friends, it's Miss Kat here again with you today to do another project that you can do at home with things that you should have laying around the house. Today we're going to be making some jointed paper puppets, which are a lot like the shadow puppets we made last week, but they have a lot more detail and they're going to have joints, which means you'll be able to move them around. The materials we're going to need today are just some cardboard, again from a cereal box is great, doesn't have to be the whole thing, could be scrap. Some paper to draw on, a pencil, and scissors. And I'm going to show you some different ways of making joints. So, depending on what you have around the house, you can try the different methods. The first method would be just with these things called brads, which are just paper fasteners. If you have these, perfect. You've got a lot of the work already done. If you do not have these, then I'm going to show you how to make joints using buttons. They don't have to match. They can be kind of any size. The smaller the better, but whatever you've got is going to work. Some soft wire. Again, whatever you've got. You can use twist ties. You can also use small paper clips for this. Or instead of the wire, you can also use some sturdy thread or something like embroidery floss. Anything that is going to be easy to get through buttonholes, but also a little bit strong. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to need to do is decide what kind of character we're going to make. Or we at least need to decide what kind of shapes we're going to make. I decided that I wanted to keep it very simple and drew a puppet of my cat. But you could just as easily cut out these shapes, especially if you're crafting with someone much younger, and give them the shapes to decorate and decide what it's going to be afterwards. So I drew an oval for the head and a kind of pear shape for the body. Again, just keeping it really simple. Now, I like to do this on paper first, just to get my shapes sort of correct and in proportion with each other to make sure that I have room for joints later. So what I do is cut out the head and the body so that I can see how they're going to fit together. And then once I have that, I can draw a simple shape for an arm or a leg based on the relative size with the body. You see, you can kind of overlap and play with sizes. And for this, I decided that I wanted such a simple shape that I could use the same kind of oblong hot doggy shape for all of the arms and the legs. So I'm just going to cut one out of paper and then trace that onto my cardboard 4 times. I'm also making a cat, so I figured she should have some ears. After I cut my shapes out of paper and I'm sure about my sizes, I traced them onto cardboard and cut them out. And here we have a head, a body, four legs, and I also made her a tail. Now at this point you want to figure out how exactly you want your puppet to move. Now the simplest way would be to put the head on top, the arms on the sides, the legs at the bottom, and her tail down here. But if you're doing something like an animal, I wanted to make a note that you could also join them differently and a little more simply by turning the body, putting the head here, matching up the 2 legs cut the same way here. Putting one behind, one in front, one behind, and one in front. Now in this case, you'd only have one joint that's holding on both sets of legs. One here and one here. One for the tail and one for the head. But we're going to do the more traditional shape because that is good for making animals or people or whatever you decide. So again, the first thing we do is make sure we have all of our parts about where we want them. I like to start with the head and the body. So for this, I want to make my hole on the head first. Whenever you're making a hole for a joint, it's a good idea to use something very small, like the point of very fine scissors, or I'm going to be using a thumbtack. So it's a good idea to make your hole with enough space around it so that the joint won't rip right away. I'm going to give her kind of a neck right here. poke a hole just like that. Now, you want to lay the head onto the body and figure out where you want it. Now again, I just kind of made some random shapes, so you could make her bigger on top, more manly, or you could put her on the side, but I'm going to do it sort of here. So now that I've lined it up, what I do is use a very sharp pencil and go through my hole and mark that same spot on my body. And I use my thumbtack again and I make another hole here. Okay, so now I do the same thing for all of the limbs. With a limb, you want to make sure that, again, you put your hole somewhere around here so that you're giving it enough space to not wear the joint out too quickly. Sometimes I draw my dot first. That helps guide. Use my thumbtack. And you keep repeating till you have all the holes you're going to need. Now that you know exactly where all of your pieces are going to go, it's a good idea to decorate them now before you put them together. So this kind of cardboard, chipboard, is great for colored pencils or crayons, markers, or paint. Anything you want to do. You could also cut up scraps of fabric or paper to decorate them. You could glue on bows, stickers, anything you want. Now, like I said earlier, if you happen to have any paper fasteners or brads, that's going to make your job a little bit easier. So to use a paper fastener to make a joint, all you do is poke it through your hole, first on your limb, and then on your body, and you open it up in the back. Now we've got a pretty typical joint. But if we don't have that, I wanted to show you what you can do instead. So I have a small piece of wire here. I'm using red so that you can see it pretty well. And a button, and I'm essentially making my own brad. What you want to do is stick your wire, you can see mine is very soft, through the buttonholes and pull out the back. If you have needle nose pliers, now is a good time to use them, but they're usually not necessary. So as you can see, I've essentially made a brad. Now all you do is poke these through your hole. I'm actually going to make my hole a little bit bigger. It's better to make it too small and make it than too big. Then you're gonna open it up in the back just like you did with the brad. So you've made a joint. Now, if you happen to not have wire, we could do the same thing, but with two buttons. So I've got two. They don't have to match, but they can. And this kind of heavy thread. Cut a piece of thread. What we want to do is thread our button like this, and then we're going to feed the ends of the thread through our hole. So sometimes this is a little bit tricky. Now we want to feed our threads through the body. And put another button on the back. And we want to tie that with a nice sturdy double knot. Maybe a triple. And then we can cut off the excess. And as you can see, we have yet another kind of joint. Now, if you absolutely do not have any buttons, you could make something that is works like the button out of a scrap piece of cardboard. Simply cut a circle and 2 little holes in it, and then you can use that the way I use the buttons. Okay, so that's 3 different kinds of joints. And that's essentially all you need to know to make your own puppet. Now I want to show you my finished puppet of Wednesday. I jointed her on the side like I explained before, so there's only 1 joint here and 1 joint here to hold both legs on. So I did 1 in front and 1 behind, 1 in front, 1 behind, put her tail behind and her head in front. Now there are lots of things that you can do with paper puppets. You can put them in your shadow puppets, you can put a stick underneath and a stick on their arms to make them move, or you can make your own stop motion animation with them. It's fun to create a background or use paper that you already have. And you can make props out of other pieces of cardboard. I made her a little bed. My Wednesday in real life has a bed just like this, and it's an homage to Wednesday Addams. Your parents might know who that is. But as you can see, I left it open inside, and so she can climb in, and she can look off the edge. She can sit up and hang her tail out of it. There's lots of things you can do with them. I also wanted to show you that with these same basic shapes, you can make lots of other things. Here I made a little girl. She's got the same oval head, the pear-shaped body, the little noodly legs and arms. This time I gave her a little tab at the bottom of her head so that she'd have a neck and her button wouldn't be on her face. But I made her the same way as the others with wire and buttons. And this is just colored pencil and some colored paper that I glued on for clothing. Again, you can put her on a background that you've drawn or a photo that you found, or this is scrapbook paper, and you can make her have all sorts of adventures. There are lots of apps available to make stop motion movies, or you can just take a sequence of pictures on your phone and scroll through your photo album to see them move. Thanks for crafting along with me today. Again, if you do any of these projects, make sure that you share them with the hashtag PhillyPack. I'll be checking, and I hope that you're staying safe and happy at home. Hope to see you soon. Bye.